If you're always running behind in clinic, running from room to room like a chicken with your head cut off, and you're charting at night and you're snapping at your kids as soon as you get home, I need to tell you something, and it might sting a little. It's probably not your schedule. It's because you're treating everything like it's an emergency. And it's not. You're in the right place. Hello, I'm Dr. Michelle Chestovich, and welcome to StressRx. What I see over and over again with burnt out physicians is this constant sense of urgency that every patient and every message and every interruption feels like it has to be handled right now. And that's exactly what's keeping you stuck, what's keeping you behind, and what's making you absolutely feel exhausted. So in this video, I'm going to show you 3 habits that are quietly making you run late every single day and how to fix them so you could actually leave work on time and your work can be finished. So let's break this down a little bit, because what shows up is something very specific during your day. It's the first habit that's making you run behind, and it's something that most people don't even realize that they're doing. And you're completely unaware, and here's what I'll tell you. You are completely unaware of the time in the room. You walk in with a plan, but then the conversation drifts. The patient brings up just one more thing, and then another, and then suddenly you're 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes behind, and you haven't even started your charting. And it's not because you're bad with time, but it's just because you're unaware. You need to be the leader in the room. No one taught you that you need to be mindful of the time going into the room and that you can still be present and a caring physician and actively manage the time. So what happens is you're giving great care, but the expense of your entire day. And then you pay for it later at night when you're finishing your charting or early in the morning when you're trying to catch up. But the shift here is small, but it's powerful. So instead of thinking of the visit as one big long block, start mentally bringing it down into parts. I want you to do the listening and then the decision making and then the wrap up. The last part, the wrap up, is where most people lose control of their time. They say any other questions, and then all of a sudden the patient launches into a whole new thing. You need to close with a purpose. Even something as simple as, all right, so I just want to make sure I stay on time for all my other patients, and we need to make sure that you understand what's going on today. Any questions about that? That's leadership. And most physicians aren't operating from that place. They're operating from reaction. We're taught, ask the patient at the end, anything else. Which brings me to the next habit. And honestly, this is the one that really changes once you see it. You're not operating with leader energy in your clinic. You need to be the one who's in charge of the visit. And you also need to be the one who runs the show. And I don't mean this in a harsh way. No one teaches you this, but this is what it looks like. You walk into the room and the patient immediately starts listing everything they want to talk about, and you just follow along wherever they go. You're the leader in the room. You need to go in and say, hey, you're here for follow-up today of this and the other. Staff interrupt you and you immediately switch gears and you bounce from charting to messages to the next patient back to charting. And it feels like you're being pulled in 100 different directions all day long. It's because you are. Of course you're running behind, and you're not actually running your clinic, you're reacting to it. So the shift here is pretty subtle, but it's powerful. You start seeing yourself as the leader in the room. You're not better than anyone else, but you know how much time you have and what you can actually accomplish during a visit. You're the one setting the agenda. Of course we see what the patients have going on, but we get to decide what's handled now versus later. You're the one protecting your time and your focus. So instead of walking into the room and opening the door and just hoping everything goes well, you guide it. Let's make sure we can focus on the top 1 or 2 things today. Or I see you're here for follow-up of diabetes and hypertension, any other concerns you have. And when they bring up 5 other things, you say, that sounds really important. I will have you make an appointment so we can further talk about that. You're not rushing the patients. You're taking care of them. And you're taking care of your entire day. The same thing goes for interruptions and all of the tasks that you have to do. You stop treating everything as equally important, and you start deciding what actually deserves your attention now. What leads into the third habit, and this one is really at the root of everything, is that constant sense of urgency. Oh my gosh, it's an emergency. Of course, our brains are wired to look for emergency. That's why we went to medical school. But you feel like you're running behind and that you need to hurry and that everything has to be done immediately. Often in these times, I think it's really important to just take a deep breath and say out loud, it's not an emergency. You're rushing through your conversations. You're thinking about the next patient, even when you're still with the current one. And you don't stop, you don't reset, you just keep going. And this hurried, frenzied energy makes it really hard to get things done. Ironically, it's all that rushing that's actually really slowing you down because you're not thinking clearly. You miss things. You have to double back. Now, what is it that I said again? Did I send that prescription? You spend more time fixing things later. So here's the reframe that I want you to try, and it's very simple. This is not an emergency. And take a deep breath. You are not in the emergency room. If it's truly an emergency, the patient has dialed 911 and is being taken care of by emergency physician colleagues. Thank you so much. Remind yourself it's not an emergency, and the entire pace changes. You become more deliberate. You think more clearly. You move through your patients more efficiently, even though things feel slower. And this one small shift, this helps a lot of physicians. So stop thinking in terms of the clock. Oh my God, I'm late for my 10:30 appointment. I'm late for my 11 o'clock appointment. And start thinking in terms of sequence instead. I'm with my first patient right now, and now I'm moving on to my second patient. This reframe has helped so many of my clients and has helped me tremendously. The clock creates pressure and the sequence creates focus. And when you combine that with actually leading your visits and being aware of your time, that's when things really start to click. You finish your charts before you leave because you've given yourself time after the patients to do that. And you're not carrying your work home into the evenings. You get home and you can actually be present in your life because you're not still stuck in the clinic mentally. This, my friends, makes such a difference. Going from being stressed and burnt out and wondering why the hell you even went into medicine to all of a sudden having a plan. How to get your work done, how to go home and enjoy time with your family and for yourself in the evenings. I want you to go forth and give it a try this week. It is not an emergency. Write it down if you need to. I've had clients of mine write little sticky notes to remind themselves when they start that frenzied energy, they remind themselves again and again throughout the day. It's not an emergency. Get our work done, follow your plan, take great care of your patients. Notice how you feel differently and notice how your brain works so much better when you're not in this fight and flight energy throughout the day. That's what I have for you this week, my dear friends. And until next week, peace and love to all of you.